everybody, this is Brett Thompson with Thompson Law Group. All right, we're going to do another installment of the Closing Ninja Classroom. I've been getting some requests in. A very common question I have is seller financing. What is it? How does it work? So seller financing, we close on seller financing deals all the time here. It's pretty simple. I'm just going to go over it with you real quick. So we've got a buyer, okay, and we have a seller, and they enter into a contract. This case stands for contract in law terms here. So they enter into a contract. We'll use round numbers. We'll say it's $100,000. So the buyer wants to purchase the house for $100,000. The seller owns the house outright, meaning there's no liens. So there's no mortgage liens, there's no judgment liens, anything else. So there's no encumbrance on the property. That's the simplest way to do it. If the seller had a mortgage lien, okay, that would be more complicated and it would put more risk on the buyer. We'd have to do a second deed of trust or what's called a wraparound mortgage. It gets more complicated. So the cleanest way to do it is if the seller owns the property free and clear of any liens. At that point, they can enter into a contract for the purchase of the property and pursuant to seller financing. So we've got a house, we've got a contract, $100,000. At the closing, okay, at the closing table, the buyer is going to sign and deliver to the seller a note, a promissory note, okay? And the promissory note is going to set forth the terms of the loan arrangement, okay? So we'll just use round numbers. It could be the purchase price is $100,000 and it'll be payable over 100 months of $1,000 each month, okay? So we'll just say it's $1,000, okay, a month for 100 months. All right, we're just keeping it simple. We're not talking about any kind of interest or anything. Now, at the same time, at the closing table, the buyer is also going to sign a deed of trust. A deed of trust is going to be the security instrument. It's going to place a lien on the property. It's going to turn the house into the collateral to secure the loan. So the borrower now is going to sign a deed of trust, and then there's going to be a third-party trustee. So the title to the property is conveyed in trust to the trustee. Title, however, okay, the seller is going to deliver a deed to the buyer. So this is a fair transaction on both sides. Legal title to the property is being conveyed to the buyer, okay? The buyer signs a promissory note to the seller saying, I'm going to pay you the money back, $1,000 a month over 100 months. The buyer also signs a deed of trust, okay, which places a lien on the property, turns the house into the collateral for the loan. The reason this is a fair transaction for both parties, the buyer has legal title, so the seller can't do anything that would adversely affect the title to the property after the closing. And as long as the buyer continues to make these payments each month in accordance with the terms of the note, good to go, okay? And once the buyer pays off the note, the lien would be released and he lives happily ever after. Now, the security for the seller, if the buyer defaults and does not pay the seller back, the seller then can contact the trustee, all right, which is named on the deed of trust. And the seller would contact the trustee and say, hey, the borrower has defaulted and I want you to carry out the foreclosure procedure. So then the trustee would send out the appropriate notices, they would advertise it in the newspaper, and they could actually auction off the property for sale. And so they would be liquidating the collateral. So the seller can be made whole again and get his money back pursuant to the loan. So there we go. We got a buyer, a seller. We have a secure transaction. That, in a nutshell, is seller financing. We do it all the time. And basically, the seller is playing the banker because it's exactly what you would do if you got a traditional mortgage, okay? You bought a house and you got a mortgage from Town Bank or wherever. They would have you sign a promissory note, and they would also have you sign a deed of trust, which would encumber the property, place a lien on the property, and turn the house into the collateral for the loan. That's it, guys. Thank you so much.